King in Kittitas County. It's my honor to welcome everyone here today to Habitat's Copper Pines townhome site. We're actually standing here on a former Seattle City Light surplus property that was made available to Habitat for this affordable housing project thanks to House Bill 2382 in 2018. These are 3-bedroom townhomes that will be occupied in early 2022, and a great illustration of a partnership between a nonprofit housing provider and local government. It's my honor now to introduce Governor Jay Inslee.
Thank you, Brett, and congratulations to your volunteers at this Habitat facility. It is nice to know it was facilitated by some legislation we passed. Please thank your volunteers for the great work they've done. We're here today on this beautiful Washington day to announce the biggest and boldest comprehensive collaborative approach to solve our homelessness crisis to date. We are unveiling a statewide approach that will maximize housing units by getting people into housing solutions, both rapidly and sustainably. We need to know this is a statewide problem, not just Seattle, not just King County, and it calls for a statewide solution. We need to step up our approach big time to homelessness. We need to build more affordable housing, and we need to provide the services that are necessary to get unsheltered people to help them through their challenges to become sustainably housed. And this approach will do all of those things. We're going to do this by providing both short and long-term housing solutions for people, by giving cities and counties flexibility and the resources to move forward, and by bolstering supports for the behavioral health needs of people so that they can get through the challenges necessary to become more stable and healthy. I am delighted to be here at Copper Pines today. It is an absolutely beautiful facility, even though it is in cougar colors. The new mayor of Seattle is trying to get over that. That's enough, Trudy. Thank you very much. I want to thank Dow for your leadership. You've been a real leader on this. Your most recent approach is really working well, and our new mayor is going to do great things. And the city of Tacoma, the city of destiny mayor, Victoria, thank you for your leadership. You've been doing some good things in Tacoma. I've seen that firsthand. So when I say that this is big and bold, it is not an overstatement. We cannot tinker around with this issue. We need real meat on the bones. That's why I'm proposing to the legislature an investment of another $800 million to address homelessness, both short and long term, in the state of Washington. It's the appropriate investment. It is not the only investment we have made. In the last several years, we've gone from $65 million to $400 million investment since I've been governor, but we need to increase this dramatically given the problem that we have. We know that there are many factors to homelessness, not just one, to this homelessness crisis. Starting with the lack of affordable housing. We need to build more housing up and down the scale in the state of Washington. We are short. If you look at our population increase over the last 10 years, we are short 225,000 units simply to provide for the new people in the state of Washington. We have unemployment, we have poverty, we have behavioral health needs of people, we have substance abuse needs of people. We need to deal with domestic violence, and we need to provide accessible options for people with disabilities. I mention this because I think at times we get into arguments about the cause of homelessness. There are multiple things we need to do to solve these problems, and that's why we are proposing to do multiple things up and down the problem. And we know that COVID-19 has only made this crisis worse. So we need to accelerate, and I want to put emphasis on the word accelerate, rapid housing opportunities for supportive housing for these folks. We're also going to invest in long-term housing solutions, but we cannot wait years and decades to get people in out of rain. The situation calls for creative and rapid solutions. We need to get people with a roof over their heads quickly. We need to give them privacy quickly, and we need to give them supportive solutions quickly while we build great longer-term housing solutions. That's happening in King County and in Seattle, and we need to accelerate that. And that's why there's a central focus on this in my budget proposal. Now, earlier this year, I do want to comment that we have not been ignoring this problem for some time. As I've indicated, we've gone from $65 million to $400 million annual investments, but it is simply not enough. Yes, we did provide $2 billion for housing last budget, but it's not enough. We need to step up to the plate. We've added $175 million to the Housing Trust Fund, but it's not enough. And we need to set aside another $120 million to acquire existing buildings that can be converted to rapid supported housing now. Now, we know these significant investments are going to change lives, and we have a moral imperative to move forward. Lives are at stake. And I will just tell you, with all of the concern and heartache we have, I will tell you to people, this works. When we provide people supportive housing with wraparound services, with the mental health treatment they need and the substance abuse treatment they need, they come out of it and get back on their feet. There is great news to be had in the state of Washington when we make these investments. We are a moral state, and it is unacceptable to us for people to live under bridges and not have solutions to these problems. And we're not talking about moving people out without solutions. We're for providing solutions, and that's what this investment is about. I want to talk about the gaps in our efforts. I think the word that maybe I think is most important here is to provide the full spectrum of housing solutions that we need. We need rapid housing to get people into tiny homes as fast as we can. We need rapid housing to get into converted motels. We need rapid housing, but we also need long-term solutions for people that right now Habitat Humanity is built right here. We need the full spectrum of approaches as people transition off the street into permanent housing. And we are providing that full spectrum of services, including the support in mental and behavioral health that we need. I want to go through some of the spectrum that we're talking about. We want to help people with utility bills so they do not become homeless. This is something we've got to be aware of. Not only do we have to get people an opportunity to get off the streets, we need to help them prevent going on streets in the first place. So we are proposing a support for utilities for right now of $100 million for people so they do not become homeless and are evicted because they're not able to pay their utility needs. We want to help landlords. Certainly they've had difficulties during the COVID pandemic, with an $8 million proposal to help some of the landlords as they work in a partnership with us to prevent future homelessness. Now, if I can go forward to the building project part of this effort. My proposed budget will fund building and providing 1,500 permanent supportive housing and permanent affordable housing units to get this job done. This will serve a broad spectrum of vulnerable people. We know that people in crisis right now in every walk of life, families, youth, veterans, farm workers, seniors, and individuals with special needs, substance and abuse, mental health problems, they all deserve whatever approach will bring them dignity to a long-term solution. I'm also proposing investments that will produce high-quality, affordable housing developments across urban, suburban, and rural areas. That's important. Now, we know that supportive housing is the most impactful way to help people who are chronically homeless, to help them return from the streets. And this is an economic opportunity for us right now to acquire rapidly alternative buildings. That's happening in King County big time, and in Pierce County and the city of Tacoma and city of Seattle. We need to expand that. Now, just to let you know my commitment to this effort, I am proposing $334 million to these rapid rehousing solutions, like this transfer of existing buildings to rapid rehousing, like tiny home villages that I'm seeing having tremendous success, people giving people a roof, giving them privacy, giving them security, a place to have meals. This works in the transition to more permanent housing. Our capital budget will also help us acquire real property, which again, including tiny homes, for 2,460 units. We can make this transition relatively rapidly. In our proposals, about 60% of the units would be prioritized to safely transition people experiencing homelessness into safe and habitable spaces and toward more permanent housing solution. This could include people living in unsanctioned encampments, of course, and in public right-of-ways or spaces. Now, if I can talk about the supportive services that these folks need to become really in a sustainable, safe situation. We know housing, but we really need these supportive services to make this work. If you go to any of these folks who've been successful, it's because they have had the supports to become more stable in their lives. So a central part in creating this long-term stability is to include medical and psychiatric supports, while reducing the barriers that often prevent people from getting off the streets. So my budget will expand the suite of these supports to help people remain in stable housing to the tune of $48 million. This is a significant and necessary part of solving the homelessness crisis. I'm also increasing our capital investment in crisis stabilization centers. Now, this is really important. It's important when it comes to law enforcement as well. We just have not had places to get people through crises, and we've turned to the law enforcement community and the criminal justice system when we should be dealing with facilities that help people through crisis that are really not criminal needs. So we've seen this work. I was just at one at Bellingham the other day. This is a pivotal part of this plan. Now, we have people living, we know, on our right-of-ways. I want to talk about a specific subset of our homelessness problem, and that is people living on our right-of-ways today. We will work collaboratively with local governments and community leaders to help people camp on the public right-of-ways, such as freeway exits and overpasses, to help them transition into permanent housing. My proposal directs the Department of Social and Health Services to create a collaborative process with local communities to help them accomplish this job. This is going to complement the capital investment in the rapid housing acquisition program and prioritize some of these units to go to this subset of people that are on our right-of-ways. And as we safely transition people to permanent housing solutions, we are going to work with local communities to get this job done. If I can, turning again to this idea of spectrum, if we are going to solve our problem of housing, of folks who are homeless in part because of economic needs of high rent, we simply have to build more housing throughout the spectrum, or what we call middle income housing. We need more housing in the state if we're going to solve this problem, in the full range of housing, because if we don't, people just crowd out people at the bottom and rents go up if we don't build more middle housing. So this is an important part of this plan. Everyone needs a community, and we've got to build housing in some sense to be available up and down the income scale. So despite the dire need for additional housing stock and a greater variety of types, our housing simply is not keeping pace with the population of the state of Washington. There is a dire need, as I've indicated. We are 250,000 short of the housing units we have in the state of Washington. And if we don't address this fundamental problem, we're not going to be able to really help people stay out of homelessness, because rents will just continue to skyrocket. So we've got to look at ways to increase housing. Now, one of the problems we have in this regard is that some of our local communities have had restrictive ordinances which drastically limit the areas where duplexes, townhouses, and other type of middle-income housing can be allowed. This has the effect of reserving closed-in neighborhoods for only the largest and most expensive housing. So I'm proposing a change to statewide policy to address this problem. It will essentially call for more middle-income housing in areas within a half mile of major traffic stops in our larger cities. This change will allow duplexes in most areas of large and mid-sized cities. The state will provide technical assistance, including developing a model ordinance to help cities implement these new measures. I'll tell you one thing, we are not building a single new acre in the state of Washington. We have to find acres to build on. So increasing middle house opportunities will make it easier, not just for the homelessness, but here's the people who have at stake in this. Teachers, healthcare workers, and most working folks to live within the communities they serve. It also helps the generational divide that we have. You know what's happening in the state of Washington? We're making it impossible for our kids to live in this state because they can't afford housing. This is a generational problem. And people in my generation, I'm not going to argue it's the best, but it's a decent generation, we need to take some action so our kids can afford a place to live. And this, what I am proposing today, I think is fundamental to be able to achieve that goal. I want to talk about a special group of our homeless population, and that's our youth and those who are aging out of our youth. We know that we have so many thousands of kids right now that deserve a stable housing solution. I want to thank Trudy for her advocacy in finding solutions to this, and she and I and legislators have put our heads together to see what we can do about it. By the way, I also want to celebrate something. We just announced our climate policy at the Net Zero Child Care Facility, a long overdue thing to provide child care for state workers. And I want to thank Trudy for her advocacy to get that job done. But on this particular problem, we know that our youth experience homelessness within 1 year of exiting state care systems such as foster care or inpatient behavioral health treatment and juvenile rehabilitation at way too high of a frequency. We need to help these kids. So I'm proposed making new investments into the Office of Homelessness Youth System of Care Grant Program. This will expand the program into new regions and provide additional case managers, peer navigators, housing and rent assistance. We will also set additional funding aside for youth getting discharged from inpatient behavioral health settings. The Department of Commerce is also proposing legislation to make housing services accessible to young adults who are now enrolled in extended foster care and would expand eligibility to individuals who are in foster care at any age. Additional resources will increase the number of youth and young adults who can help transition safely into this new part of life. Now, we've proposed a lot, but a lot is required to deal with this problem. People feel this right in their hearts across the state of Washington, that we are a better state than we're showing right now. And we believe this is something all people need to work on. And we're calling for everybody in the state to rise to this challenge. I'd like to say this will be solved in 24 hours, but we should start this work within 24 hours to get this job done. I'm committed to it. I hope legislators will help in this regard. Fortunately, we have resources this year to make this kind of investment. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I want to note, this is a short session. Normally in these short supplemental session years, you don't do big, bold things. This year, we intend to do big, bold things, even in a short session, to get this job done. Now with this, we're going to have some more speakers. And I want to tell you, we got some great leaders here. Victoria's just done some great things. I've seen some of her rapid housing she's doing in Tacoma. I'm really excited about Mayor Harrell's proposals he's got on the plate. And now I'm going to introduce Dal Constantine, who's done some fantastic work recently, converting some of these new old buildings into new solutions. Thanks, Dal, for your leadership.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you for this bold proposal. This is the kind of boldness that is called for by the situation we see around us, and all of the different solutions that you checked off, all the proposals you're making, budgetary and policy, are exactly what's needed. It shows that you understand this issue and that you understand how to lead the state forward on it, and we are tremendously grateful. And you said quite a few of those things, so I'm going to try to be brief because it's cold and wet out here. We have seen unprecedented economic growth in this county, and that is a good thing. But the bad thing is that has come with some unintended consequences. Unintended consequences of housing shortage, a run-up in housing prices, the income inequality that's seeing people squeezed out of the housing market and into the street. No one action alone, as the governor said, will solve this crisis, and that's why these proposals are so vital. Now, to address the many aspects of homelessness and affordable housing, we need innovative solutions and projects like this one right here at Cooper Pines. We're focused on responses for the short term as we continue to provide immediate services and relief from the pandemic, and for the long term as we implement solutions to help people gain ongoing health and stability, because we know when people have a place of their own, they can get rested, they can feel secure, they can begin to heal mentally and physically and take charge of their lives again. And in King County, we've set out to ensure just that. We've invested, as the governor alluded, in $350 million, ultimately, $350 million worth of new facilities that we're buying and converting. We've bought almost 1,000 hotel rooms so far for our Health Through Housing initiative, with more on the horizon, and 500 enhanced shelter units, 24 hours a day. And this is really designed to get people the stability they need to be able to begin to recover their lives. This is for those who have been chronically homeless, out in the streets for a long time and with some kind of underlying challenge where they need that stability and the kinds of programming the governor was talking about in order to begin to move forward again. Well, we are able to do all this through collaboration and ongoing engagement with local leaders and communities, and I am grateful for them all across the county, and through the support of the state legislature, which passed key legislation in Olympia to create those funding pathways we've been using. Well, Health Through Housing is formed in partnerships, and it is a testament to what's possible when we join hands to help those who are most in need. So we need to act. We need to act now. The governor has announced a proposal that is bold and is really commensurate with the urgency we should all feel around this. And I look forward to partnering with him and with others in support of expanded investments to continue to bring people inside and to ensure that every person has a safe, secure, dignified place to call home. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce my once and soon future partner in this work, Mayor-elect Bruce Harrell.
Don't be surprised if it stops raining for a few minutes when I talk. That's the effect we're going to have here. In all seriousness, I want to thank Executive Constantine and the Governor Inslee for gathering us here today. And you're hearing this theme of boldness and action. And quite frankly, we are loving it, because that's exactly what we want, what we heard over and over while I was running for this position. As I take office and as the Regional Homeless Authority comes online next year, there is a new opportunity, I believe, to align and coordinate across the city and the county and the state in unprecedented levels. Our team hears again and again in our transition meetings, and we are meeting frequently and at times long hours, but the time for talk is over. You're now seeing the kind of bold action that we've tried in the past, but I truly believe coming into 2022, this is the only word that comes to mind again is unprecedented, this kind of leadership, this kind of focus. That's why I'm extremely excited by the investments laid out in the governor's agenda and by the conversation we've had together about how we can better unite to address the challenge like the crisis it is. Now that will mean, as the governor and the county exec described, is connecting people living unsheltered with the housing and the services and the trust that meets their needs to leave encampments with safety, humanity, and dignity. Now, over the last year, I frequently heard from those suffering homelessness and from the neighbors impacted, and time again, the theme is very clear. A real plan with real substantial investments and urgent action to provide quality housing, support, and services that get people out of inhumane conditions And we describe those very clearly. No running water, no sanitation, living in our parks and our play fields and our streets and our school grounds in inhumane conditions. The people want to see real progress that allows for the restoration of their lives, everyone's lives in the city, and a restoration in our public spaces that sort of is our common values and our common concerns here in the city. The governor's proposed efforts will help make this kind of create this kind of situation here in the city of Seattle and in other parts of the city very real. That's why one of our 3 deputy mayors, we've created a new position. It's called the Deputy Mayor of Housing and Homelessness. I believe that with laser focus, we need to devote a key cabinet member to this kind of laser focus, and I believe now that the governor has given us the tools to really excel in this area. As I take office in January, I'm committed to being a housing mayor. I want people to think about that, a mayor who commits to build more across the entire spectrum, from affordable housing to 0 to 30% of AMI, workforce and marketplace housing, along with enhanced shelter and transitional options. The state efforts to add support for the Housing Trust Fund are absolutely critical for this goal. As is the governor's proposal to fund rapid acquisition of housing, something we've really seen Executive Constantine lead on this effort. This is a proven and creative and effective solution to the appropriate meeting the appropriate needs, the urgent needs at this very moment in time. The emergency assistance for rental assistance and utility bills, now this is real work. These are real investments. This kind of prevention method that will basically stop people from becoming homeless in the first place, and we know that's essential for worsening the crisis that we're in. The funding for services in behavioral health and crisis stabilization areas and support for the workforce that makes this work possible. Again, critical investments. We are excited at the City of Seattle to see this. Now, this work is not going to be easy. We all know that. Change is not going to happen overnight, as the governor said, but it will require trust and commitment, a sustained urgency in action, trust that your elected leaders are creating the investments and pushing the investments, and the people on the grassroots floor doing the work, helping the homeless, that their hearts are in the right position and their actions will follow. That's what this investment strategy, I believe, that the governor's laid out sort of embodies. You've heard frequently when I had run for office that I use words like love and collaboration and united purpose. Us embracing our human experiences that crosses socioeconomic levels, race issues, religious issues, cultural issues, that this investment strategy laid out by our governor gives us, again, the tools to create the kind of city and the kind of county that we all could dream about. So I'm pretty excited about this. I'll close by saying it's my honor to introduce Tacoma Mayor Victoria Woodard, someone that I've known for decades, and I'm glad she and I are back on good footings, because this morning we had a press conference where we are taking the reign back from Tacoma and placing them where they belong here in the city of Seattle. She's a little mad at me this morning, but we're back on good graces to talk about this crisis of housing and homelessness. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Mayor Woodard.
After he said that, I wanted to make sure we hugged each other in front of all of you so you could see that we're really not fighting. Now, they're only there temporarily, that's all I'm going to say. Sorry about that, on whose mic just went over. Great. Thank you, Bruce. It is an honor to be here this afternoon. And, Governor, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your plan of addressing the 2 most important issues that our communities are facing, and that's affordable housing and homelessness. But I also want to thank you for the urgency in which you've put behind it. This issue, as you clearly said, has only been exacerbated by COVID. And it's so important that now is the time, today is the day. We can no longer wait to solve this crisis. And it's not just the city of Tacoma's issue. It's not just the city of Seattle or King County. It really is a statewide issue that needs statewide solutions. And, Governor, you presented those today. And please know, on behalf of all the mayors, I'm sure I can speak for this morning, that we are so grateful for you and your leadership. I'm especially interested in this as it relates to serving our homeless population. This challenge, as I said, is not just happening in our city, in our state, but across the nation. And it has deep and immediate impacts on all of the lives it touches. These important issues have been made even more urgent by the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it will take both bold and collaboration to address both of these issues at the state level. I'm especially encouraged by the generous investments the Governor Inslee has proposed to find solutions for individuals living without shelter and to help those who may become homeless from becoming homeless. You know, the market alone can only do so much in providing the housing our community needs. And it's not always financially feasible for private developers to produce all of the housing we need to our lowest income friends and without the additional support that you have proposed today, Governor. Governor Inslee's proposed 2022 supplemental operating and capital budget acknowledges this reality by including funding that speaks to the housing and shelter needs of our most vulnerable neighbors. While the city of Tacoma has made significant investments addressing our homeless crisis since declaring it a public health emergency in 2017, this work we cannot do successfully alone. We know that combating homelessness requires the support of service providers and partners at every level of government. When I say collaboration is the key to tackling this issue of homelessness, I say that from experience. Just 2 days ago in the city of Tacoma, I stood alongside partners from Pierce County and the city of Lakewood for the first time in history, along with the Low-Income Housing Institute and advocates, to open a new facility called Aspen Court. This former hotel will provide 120 people with shelter this winter, a safe and warm place to be, to get out of the cold and to begin focusing on improving their lives. I'm especially excited that after operating the shelter for 2 years, we will do the necessary renovations to turn this into permanent supportive housing, which is what we need so badly across this state. I say that to say that is proof of how working together across city boundaries, across institutional boundaries, how we're really going to make the necessary changes that we need to see in our communities in order to address all the needs for those who are houseless and for those who are seeking affordable housing. The governor's proposed investments in homeless will allow us to build on the kind of synergy and partnership that I saw this week when opening the Aspen Court. Governor, again, we deeply, deeply appreciate your advocacy and ongoing support with our state legislators. And please know we'll be working beside you and with you to help them get this passed. While it is a short session, as the governor said, the time is now. We can't wait any longer, and the community members of Washington State deserve this. Thank you so much. And now it is my honor to introduce Michelle Thomas from the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance.
Hi, I'm Michelle Thomas with the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance. Renter households in Washington are struggling, and this budget offers the bold investments we need from state leaders to address our growing homelessness crisis. Affordable homes are the solution to homelessness, and this budget embraces this by investing deeply into affordable homes across the state. Also, this budget is important because it meets Washington where we're at. It says to the many, many struggling renters that you are seen, and that the impossible choices that you have to make every month between paying the rent and meeting your other basic needs is not fair and it's not right. And this budget says that our elected leaders tend to do something to ease the pain. I think we all know that throughout the pandemic that many, many renters in Washington state have struggled to pay the rent, to pay utility bills, and to meet their other basic needs. So many households have been pushed into instability over the last 21 months, leaving many of them very vulnerable to homelessness. The Census Bureau reported in October that in Washington, there were over 360,000 renters in our state who were current in rent, but who had to use money from savings or by selling off their personal assets in order to meet their basic needs over the previous week. And a recent national Harvard and NPR report found that 30% of households earning under $50,000 have lost all of their savings during the pandemic. This tracks with the experiences in Washington state, where renters earning $50,000 or less represent the hardest hit income group. Also, consistent and very significant racial disparities have been experienced throughout the pandemic by Black renter households and other households of color. And renter households with children under the age of 18 have consistently struggled with higher rental arrears than households without children. Help is needed, and we applaud the governor for rising to this moment with a bold and a moral budget that invests deeply into affordable housing and homelessness solutions. Governor Inslee's investments in the innovative and strategic rapid acquisition program and in the State Housing Trust Fund will benefit generations of households over the next 50 years. Affordable homes are the solution to homelessness, and the Washington Low-Income Housing Alliance applauds the governor for proposing a budget that speaks to the needs of the many, many struggling households in Washington state. And we encourage the state legislature to follow suit. Thank you so much. And it's my pleasure to now introduce Jasmine Jefferson from the Washington State Realtors. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. I should have had paper. It would have been so much easier to get this all set up. All right. Thank you, Governor Inslee, for the honor of being here today. My name is Jasmine Jefferson, and in addition to being the principal managing broker at Windermere Professional Partners in Tacoma, I'm also a member of the recently formed Housing Disparities Work Group that's being overseen by Director Lisa Brown at the Department of Commerce. The governor's housing legislation will be a big win for residents and parents all across Washington state. Every day I talk to my brokers and families who are worried about whether or not their kids will be priced out of state as either renters or buyers. I have that same worry for my adult daughter, Jasmine Jr. This bill will give my daughter and other young adults a fighting chance to find housing that will allow the next generation of Washingtonians to call Washington home. They will be able to live in the neighborhoods they grew up in and find housing near their jobs. Home ownership is the single most important way for families to build wealth and to truly achieve, oh gosh, my eyes are watering, sorry about that. And to truly achieve equity in Washington state, we must ensure that all families have the opportunity for home ownership. It's also a win for our communities who want more housing options like duplexes, triplexes, or townhomes. It's a win for our home builders who want the option of building different housing types. This bill does not eliminate single-family housing. It adds additional housing types that can be built within neighborhoods. As a realtor, I know that these housing types that buyers want to buy and that they are the most affordable for first-time home buyers. According to a recent report by Eco Northwest, Washington state has the lowest number of housing units per family in the entire country. We need to take bold action to reverse that, and this is a great day for parents and all communities across the state. I want to thank Governor Inslee for allowing me to be a part of it. And next, Brett D'Angelo.
Thank you. Again, I'm Brett D'Antonio with Habitat for Humanity. I want to thank Governor Inslee, Executive Constantine, Mayor-elect Terrell, Mayor Woodard, and all of you for joining us here today. Particularly Governor Inslee, thank you for your leadership on the legislation that would increase housing through density incentives. This will help fill the missing middle housing gap for tens of thousands of Washington families. The legislation would re-legalize middle housing in urban areas throughout the state. It would give us options that would serve a broad range of people and families, including those with low incomes that are seeking affordable housing. Housing density isn't just about rentals. Density flexibility enables Habitat and other home builders to provide affordable for-sale units. Density is not just a gateway to build apartments. As the governor mentioned, density includes condos, duplexes, townhomes, and cottage homes. And as we know for generations, the single largest source of family wealth in America has been generated through home equity. Homeowners accumulate wealth as the investment in their homes grow, and they pass that on. They give the next generation a head start towards economic freedom and mobility. And beyond wealth creation, homeowners we know have increased civic engagement, better health, greater educational achievement, and improved stability. In January, the legislature will have the chance to establish statewide standards for modest homes like these around us. Re-legalizing density would make many more communities just like this available across the state. Would see existing barriers broken to enable missing middle housing that meets the demand for more home types near jobs, near schools, and near transit. And for that, I want to applaud the effort of our elected officials to advance density flexibility statewide. Thank you all for joining us today, again, at our Copper Pines community. Thank you.
Let's get all the speakers up here. Dal's going to take up. Okay, I'll handle Dal's. So, Victoria, you want to join us? The speakers, Brett, Jasmine, come on up here in case we're now going to stand for the unified acclaim of the media here. So, any questions? Yes, good. You bet. Christmas is coming, John, so keep it kind of... I said Christmas is coming, so keep it short. Go ahead.
I'm taking the chances when I can get it. Fix my mic real quick before we fell down a little bit ago, and...
Little battery swap here.
Whoa. Hey.
Sorry there.
We're going to get it.
Oh, we got it. We believe in technology.
And...
when it works.
back, yeah. All right.
All right, John.
Okay, first of all, out of the $800 million, ballpark, how much is going to King County, how much is going to Seattle, how much is going to Tacoma? Is there a central office handling all of this?
Just the right amount will go to each jurisdiction. How's that? John, I don't have those details. Let me get the staff to talk to you. Okay. There's no specific designation, and obviously the legislature is going to help in that system.
How many bills do you have putting this together?
I don't know the answer to that. Another good question. I'll get an answer to you.
Okay, and what do you mean by a tiny unit? Are we talking like a 100 or 200 square footer?
Yeah, well,
Or are we talking something like this?
Well, this comes in all flavors and all dimensions. But we have seen, and I've seen local communities build these, what are commonly called tiny home villages, which are frequently 30 or 50 units that have the benefit of being out of the rain with a good structure that can last for years. When we say tiny, there's what? 8 by 12, 10 by 14, that's probably, you think that's about the right dimensions, don't you think? And I've seen them with pitched roofs. I've seen them with flat roofs. I've seen them made out of plywood, sheetrock. I've seen them made out of fiberglass and kinds of different designs. And they provide people with being out of the rain, being adequately warm. They are giving people privacy, which is very important. When you talk to people who are on the street, privacy as an alternative to being on the street is very important to them, with a locked door so they can have privacy, so that they can have a place to store their personal equipment. They also have, obviously, hygiene toilet and shower facilities. Most have some common cooking facility, either for heating or cooking, and usually some type of community space. And I have to tell you, seeing them, when I've talked to the residents, they think it's really, really great for them because it helps them transition away from the street into more permanent settings. And one of the things that I think would be surprising to people, it takes time to get used even to being inside and the idea of having some kind of responsibility for an area. That transition is part of their rehabilitation frequently. Now, also in these villages, they usually have access to some mental health assistance, access to substance abuse programs, and hopefully cited by public transportation. Those things have been remarkably successful, and people who've been in them that I've talked to have really, really liked them. So that's kind of a quick description.
Two last questions. Do you have the money already set aside in the state's coffers? Do you have to
well, no,
reduce tax or?
No, these are. We are very fortunate. We have general funds money. This does not require an increasing revenue source to do this. We do have the dollars, but not today. That's why I'm proposing an additional $800 million.
How fast? My final question is, how fast is this going to be?
It's going to be. As soon as John stops talking, we're going to start building. So anyway. I'll come back to you, John. Let's do some others.
Give me a sense for, I mean, there's been a lot of numbers thrown around here, but has anybody really been, you're talking about a statewide plan, is there an overall number of estimate for how many people we figure are homeless within the state of Washington that will need these services?
I'm going to ask for the number. Would you like to give me the number that you think is the best estimate? Because we will give you different numbers.
Do you have an updated number, Emily, of people experiencing on homelessness?
So I'll try to give you the best estimate offline so that you can use something. One of the problems is the numbers vary on how you count homelessness people. For instance, we have a lot of youth that are couch searching or surfing in really sort of inadequate situations. They should be counted as homeless. Then there are those who are just literally on the street. I will give you the best numbers that I can give you offline here.
Well, on top of that, without having a clear sense of how big of an issue it is, obviously everyone's in agreement that it's a big issue. Why is 800 the right number?
It's a number that we believe will make a very significant, rapid approach to this. We think it's one that should be within the legislative appetite. And it's the one that is as fast as we can pedal in getting these things up and running. It takes some time to get even a tiny village up and running, months at a time. And that's the fastest way to get this job done. So this is the amount of money that allows us to move as fast as we can, both in the rapid rehousing and to the long-term building program.
What's your confidence in the legislature? You already mentioned it's a sort of session. 800 million is a large number. You think it'll get through?
I think we have a very good chance of this because I think there's such a broad understanding of how this is unacceptable in the state of Washington, both urban and rural. I'm relatively confident that the legislature is going to do big things in homelessness this year. So I feel good about it.
Do you think you'll get pushed back?
No, we have a new rule that you just pass the governor's budget and everybody can go home the first week. So it solves that problem. The one thing that I will mention is that our effort to give more housing options to people in urban communities, there will be discussion of that because it does involve change. Change is always hard. But it is a physical fact that if you cannot build more housing in the urban core right now, we will not solve this problem because we simply have no more acreage. When you have 1 million people moving into your state and you only build 400,000 housing for them, you're going to experience homelessness. So we have to accept a physical fact that we need to open up new housing alternatives in our cities. That is a physical fact. It involves change, but it's change that allows our kids to have a place to live. I think that's a pretty good thing. It allows our teachers to have a place to live. That's a pretty good thing. And it allows our homeless to get out of homelessness. So this is simply a necessary thing to do if we're going to solve this problem. This will involve some discussion in the legislature, but it is certainly worth having. Yeah.
Why do you think now is the right time to propose the middle housing?
Because it is so necessary. And I guess one of the points I want to make, this is not just about the homeless, it's about people whose rents are going through the roof and will soon be homeless because the rents are going through the roof. The rents are going through the roof because we don't have enough houses for people who are moving to the state of Washington. And so rents are skyrocketing. The only solution to that is to build more housing. And we don't have more acres to build on. We have to build more dense housing and provide more opportunities in our urban core. That's what this proposal is about. And as I've said, change is difficult, but it is necessary to change our housing practices in our cities if we're going to get on top of homelessness. We can spend all the money we want, but if you don't have a house for people to go to, you can't solve the problem. So this is necessary not just for the homeless, it's necessary for our kids who need affordable housing, and it's necessary for our firefighters and our bus drivers and our teachers to have to be able to afford a place to live in a city. So everybody's got a stake in this particular proposal.
The Olympian sent a question in, Brandon the Olympian, who says, the legislature has tried to offer incentives for cities with using middle housing in past years. Are you calling for a mandate that would require cities to legalize missing middle housing?
This is an approach that does both, if you will, and I think it's necessary to the task. And when we do this, we get beautiful housing like this. This is beautiful housing. This is A+, built by volunteers here. And it happened because the legislature stepped up to the plate last year and passed a bill that allowed a development like this to happen. And we need to accentuate and accelerate that type of change. I am reasonably confident we can get this job done. It's the only way it's going to get done. Anything else? Anybody else want to add anything? Okay, thanks a million. Oh, yes, you had a follow-up.
The speed on accomplishment question. Will we actually get people out of the encampments and off the streets and off the right-of-ways in calendar year 2022 with all of this, or is it more realistic that we won't be feeling results until 2022?
Yeah, I think there is real transition in 2022 for people, particularly when I emphasize the rapid supportive housing. Some of these tiny housing villages can be up in just a few months. Dow Constantine and Victoria are doing things to rehab motels. That can happen in months, not years. And that's what we're aiming for. We got to get people out of the rain in months, not years or decades. We're going to do that. Thanks a million. Stay dry. Go Falcons. Thank you so much for your leadership. This is a beautiful thing.